Now, for more on how this day can be recognized and how you can show your support to end violence against women in our country, Andrea Gunraj from the Canadian Women's Foundation joins us. We appreciate your time today, Andrea.
Thank you for having me.
Why is it so important to have an internationally recognized day like this, and how can we observe the day today?
Well, it's a day of action and change, and it's also the start of the global 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. All around the world, advocates and survivors are talking about the change we need to end this abuse that's all too common where we live, work, and play. And I think about just taking a step back and looking at what violence against women is. It takes lots of different forms, gender-based violence. It can be intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and emotional abuse. It often happens behind closed doors. And we know that all women are at risks, but some are at a greater risk, those who are marginalized. That includes young women, Indigenous, queer, and trans people. It also includes Black and racialized women, women in the North, women with disabilities. So really, we have to look at what we're going to do to support those at greatest risk and recognize the role we play. We know rates are high of this violence, and they've gone up. 44% of women face intimate partner violence in their lifetimes. A woman or girl is killed every 48 hours in Canada. And 90% of people in Canada say somebody, or we all have a responsibility to tend to this abuse, but 23% say it's none of my business if it doesn't directly involve me. So we have to recognize the role we have to play and be ready to act where we are in our communities.
You touched on it a little bit, but some of the more common issues that women face here in Canada.
Well, we know that femicide rates are really high. As I mentioned, we have this issue of a woman or girl being killed every 48 hours, often by a man. And we also have this intimate partner violence rate of 44% of women experiencing this violence from an intimate partner in their lifetimes. And we have to recognize that there's also an issue here where we are looking at different forms of violence. So it can happen behind closed doors in a home. It can happen in a workplace. It can happen at school, even in our communities. This is very common in Canada, and we know that it plays differently in different parts of the world, but in Canada, we do see it in all the different spheres of our lives, and we see that it's women, girls, and gender diverse people who have this high rate of experiencing this violence.
You mentioned that today is a call to action. Some suggestions, remind us of the resources women and girls do have available here in Canada.
Well, I'm here in Toronto, and in Ontario and other parts of the country, there's the Assaulted Women's Helpline. I want to leave people with this information, 1-866-863-0511. And you don't have to be dealing with assault right now. You can call anytime and speak to somebody about this issue. And if you know somebody who maybe is going through something difficult and you want to support them and you just want to talk to somebody who's smart about it, you can call them as well. There's also Women's Shelters Canada, sheltersafe.ca, that lists all the shelters in Canada. And again, you don't need to go to a shelter to ask for help from one of the counselors there. And I would suggest you go to canadianwomen.org. You can find more resources, more places to call, and even tips and tools about how you can be a competent person to support somebody going through violence right now. This violence is just so common. So it's good for us to know how we can support people where we live, work, and play.
Some great advice there. Andrea Gunraj with the Canadian Women's Foundation as we acknowledge International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Andrea, thanks.
Thank you.